In this lesson, we are going to be talking about global warming. And so how we have global warming, or climate change, is that the greenhouse gases store infrared radiation. Remember, infrared radiation is one of the types of energy along the electromagnetic spectrum. So greenhouse gases store this energy and release it back into the atmosphere. So, So our ultraviolet radiation, which is of a high energy level, is staying in our atmosphere. And so the reason this is happening is we are putting greenhouse gases in the atmosphere mostly as a result of burning fossil fuels and generating electricity. So, if you'll remember, our fossil fuels are the remains of organisms that are millions and millions of years old. And so, the remains of these organisms are rich in carbon compounds. So when they're broken, we get lots of energy. However, one of the byproducts is that we end up with having carbon in the atmosphere. So carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. So using lots of fossil fuels, putting greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Okay? So what we have happening is normally plants are able to take in some of this carbon dioxide and perform photosynthesis and put out oxygen instead. So we normally have this natural balance of carbon dioxide into plants, oxygen out of plants. However, because we are practicing deforestation, we are decreasing the number of plants that we have in the earth, and the plants aren't able to keep up with the rising amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So we have more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than plants can keep up with. Okay, so we have a rising level of carbon dioxide that we're ending up with in our atmosphere. So a couple of problems when we have this global warming. The first one is called acidification. Okay, so write that down. One. Okay, so acidification is when we have carbon dioxide that is being absorbed by our oceans. And so when this is happening, the pH, or the acidity of our water, the acidity is increasing, and so our pH is going down. And so this isn't necessarily good for our animals and plants living in the oceans until they start dying. So as a result, we start having a decrease in biodiversity. So our oceans absorbing our carbon dioxide increases the acidity of our ocean water. The second thing is, as our temperature is increasing, we're having more evaporation. More evaporation, we're going to have more rain, and we're going to have more hurricanes. So to increase rain, increase hurricanes. We're also going to have an increase in erosion. And all of these particularly an increase in erosion, decrease biodiversity. And the final thing that we're going to have is we're going to have an increase in our sea level. if our glaciers are melting, we're going to end up with more liquid water, and so the sea levels are going to start to rise. And so the two things that are going to happen is we're going to have coastal erosion that increases. So let's write that down, equals increase. Okay, and so the two things that are going to happen when we have an increased rate of coastal erosion, we're going to have a loss of coastal property and habitats. Okay, so it's going to be a loss of coastal property, so there's going to be an economic problem that we're having, and then loss of habitats for our animals. If animals are losing their habitats, they're not going to be able to live there anymore, they might not be able to live, we're going to have a decrease in biodiversity. And the other thing that's associated with an increase in coastal erosion is going to be saltwater intrusion. Okay, so saltwater intrusion. When we have more saltwater along our coast, remember that our saltwater exerts a pressure on our aquifers. So if we increase the amount of saltwater we have, it is going to have an even stronger force than it normally has. So our saltwater is going to push itself into the aquifer, ending up in our groundwater, making it very difficult to get out. So greenhouse gases are causing our global warming, and lots of negative things happening when we are experiencing this global warming.